With the highest concentration of Western educated Nigerians at that time, Lagos, the colonial capital, was the nucleus of these movements. Before the 1930s, Macaulay and his Nigerian National Democratic Party had dominated the political spectrum in Lagos. But in the early 30s, this new generation of intellectuals would form an organization that would challenge Macaulay's control. This organization was known as the Lagos Youth Movement, which later became the Nigerian Youth Movement in 1934. It began as a body that demanded quality education for Nigerians, but in the space of 4 years, it became the most powerful nationalist movement in the country. By 1938, the Nigerian Youth Movement had spread beyond Lagos to many parts of Nigeria, having a combined membership of over 10,000. In 1945, Nigerian workers struck for 37 days over the increase in the cost of living, shutting down postal, railway, and telegraph services around the country in the process. A new organization, the National Council of Nigerian and Cameroonians, NCNC, was an active participant in the strike. The strike ended when the colonial government met the demands of the workers, but this new organization would become a force in the nationalist struggle for Nigerian unity and self-governance. Its leader, NNAMDI AZIKIWE, was the most influential Nigerian nationalist that emerged in the 30s. His great sense of solidarity took him to the leadership of the Nigerian Youth Movement. But in 1941, AZIKIWE would leave the NYM over a dispute concerning a legislative election he felt was marred by ethnic rivalry. He left along with a large percentage of members to co-found the NCNC with Herbert Macaulay. The years between 1945 and 1954 saw the introduction of the 3 new constitutions in Nigeria. The first, known as the Richards Constitution, revamped the Legislative Council and allowed Nigerians as the majority for the first time. Under the Constitution, Nigeria became a theory region federal state, having houses of assemblies in every region and a central legislature based in Lagos. Although the Richards Constitution intended to promote unity among Nigerians, it ended up intensifying regional identities. The NCNC, which started as a leading nationalist organization based on its Pan-African motivations, soon came regionally inclined, becoming the single most influential body among the Igbos in the East. The Nigerian Youth Movement soon fell under the leadership of a wealthy Yoruba cocoa farmer called Chief Obafemi Awolowo. Under Awolowo, the NYM became the Action Group, a Yoruba-dominated organization in the West. Awolowo became the leading prominent. The NYM became the Action Group, a Yoruba-dominated organization in the West. Awolowo became the leading prominent of Yoruba nationalism in Yoruba support in the Western region. In the North, the major cultural organization was the Hausa Fulani Inclined Northern People's Congress, founded in 1943 by 3 of the few Northerners who had attained high-standard European education at that time. The NPCs sought to promote Northern unity and maintain regional autonomy. However, under the leadership of one man, the NPC would automatically become the most influential organization in the North. This man was Alhaji Sir Ahmadu Bello, the Sarduna of Sokoto. In 1950, Sir John Macpherson, the colonial governor after Richards, made revisions to the Richards Constitution. His constitution, known as the Macpherson Constitution, expanded the regional assemblies and made provisions for the first general election in the country. As the general elections approached, the NCNC, the Action Group, and the NPC became full-fledged political parties. In 1951, a controversy ensued between the leaders of the 3 regions on the issue of centralizing the government. This led to the Littleton Constitution of 1954, which managed to forge a middle path between the desires of the three regions. The constitution set up the federal system of government under which Nigeria gained independence in 1960. In 1957, Sir Alhaji Tafawa Balewa of the NPC became Nigeria's prime minister, the final election that would determine the country's first independent government was conducted in 1959. The NPC got the largest number of seats and a majority government was created through the NPC-NCNC coalition, making the Action Group the major opposition party. Alhaji Tafawa Balewa maintained his position as Prime Minister, and NNAMDI AZIKIWE of the NCNC took a largely ceremonial title as Nigeria's first indigenous Governor General. On October 1, 1960, Nigeria became a full-fledged sovereign state. However, the foundation upon which it gained independence were not firm. The NPC-NCNC coalition that governed at the federal level quickly became dominated by the NPC, which under the leadership of the federal prime minister and the northern premier undertook measures to improve the conditions of northerners within the federation. After suffering deliberate underdevelopment during the colonial era, they regularly handed out appointments and promotions to underqualified northerners at the expense of more qualified southerners. Nearly all funds earmarked for defense, health, education, and roads went to projects in the north. These infuriated the southerners, especially the NCNC, who saw their skills disregarded by a federal system that increasingly seemed to value ethnicity over merit. In 1962, the Action Group of the Western region faced a crisis over its position as the opposition party. Some members believed that the party was becoming irrelevant at the national level and wanted to abandon the opposition as opposition party by becoming allies with the NPC. Among the adherents of this line of thought was Chief S.L. Akintola, who had succeeded Chief Awolowo as Premier of the Western region in 1959. Awolowo did not like this. He tried to have Akintola removed as Premier, replacing him with his ally, Chief Adegbeno. The result was a major preliminary crisis between Awolowo and Akintola. At this point, Prime Minister Balewa, who hoped to align with Akintola and gain a foot ground in the Western region, declared a state of emergency in the West and suspended the Action Group government for 6 months, replacing it with an interim government. Akintola was reinstated as Premier, but the damage done on Awolowo's Action Group party would prove to be an irreversible one. In 1963, a new region was carved out for the West, further weakening the Action Group. Things would only go from bad to worse for the party because in the same year, Awolowo and several other leaders of the Action Group were imprisoned on charges of treason and corruption. The 1962 census presented an opportunity for the Southern parties to erode the NPCs to control the National Assembly. The number of seats allocated to each region in the Federal Assembly was based on the regional population. And from 1953, Northerners, having the highest population, constituted the majority. The Southern governments, manipulating the figures, would give them more seats in the Federal Assembly. When the figures were released, the Eastern and the Western region recorded an incredible 70% increase in population compared to a 30% increase in the North.